Westfalia Miniatures, who make crazy cool resin minis, they made my Undead Guardian for me, have just released a second set of MÖRK BORG themed miniatures, and they are rad as hell. My favorite is this one. Now, it's supposedly a nurse, but to me, she looks like a terrifying nun. So I made her a nice, grim cathedral to reside in. And I made it ruined so that I could also use it for Mordheim and whatnot. It's made in these two parts so that it's narrow enough to easily store on my bookshelves, and on the table, I can kind of make it as big or as small as I want. Use one or both. I think it looks pretty dang cool. The general shape and design of this thing was modeled loosely after a set of monastery ruins that we actually have here in Winnipeg. I made a skeleton structure out of foam core, and I made one to represent the front of the building and one to represent the back. And I used some ruined upright walls to keep the thing stable, but also create some little areas where miniatures could hide in and explore. To get the right look, I would need some foam bricks, specifically some larger ones to make that heavy foundation style architecture that you see on bigger buildings. I think for the most part, I'm fully committed to the individual brick method as a terrain maker. I truthfully kind of hate the chore of making the bricks, but I enjoy actually putting them on, and to me they always look the best. The main reason I, after countless builds and methods, have decided that this method is my favorite is because it's the one that works best without a plan. If you want to carve bricks into a solid piece of foam, that's great, but you have to have a more defined plan in mind from the beginning because you can't as easily add and subtract from your design. And I'm not a big planner. I like jumping into builds and letting them lead me one way or another. With the individual brick method, I can sort of just play a lot more with the design. Get some on, see how it looks, then keep going or shift gears depending on how I'm feeling. I've also gotten to the point where I'm pretty fast at putting foam bricks on, so it doesn't feel like that much of a chore like it used to. Now it's a way for me to make quick progress on a building. I'm sure this is highly personal though. For some people, laying out lines and carving them into a piece of foam might feel more fluid, and that's fine. I'm not saying that the individual brick method is the best by any means. I'm just saying it's the one that I like the most, or at least the one I like the most right now. One of the things that I did on this build that I thought was pretty clever was to make a set of stairs with some landing areas by stacking layers of foam core and covering it with foam bricks. I don't think I've ever done them like this before, but it was a really easy way to make a big set of stairs and use up scraps of foam core in the process. If you want to try doing the brick method, I'd advise that you use hot glue for starter rows, but then switch to PVA or even better carpenter glue for the rest. The intuitive thing to do would be to spread the glue thin with a brush, but I've actually found that if you do that, it dries too quickly. It might not seem right at a glance, but I found that the best way to do this is by laying a line of glue and not spreading it. Do one row at a time. This thick line of glue will allow you to move the bricks a bit for adjustment for as long as you might need, and it will create a super strong bond once dried. With any new ruined buildings I'm making, I'm trying to make sure that there are some elevated areas for minis. This one didn't lend itself to a big second floor, but I did make one broken wooden balcony that could hold a few minis. I pictured this as what was once the balcony for the church choir, which is why it's not very deep. I didn't want to make too large of a second floor here and totally cover up the main altar area. I needed to make some pavers for the floor and decided to make them square, just to differentiate them a bit from the walls. Again, stopping the build to make these was annoying, but once I had them, it was a breeze to lay them down, and it quickly gave me an awesome looking stone floor. Originally, I was planning on making the interior walls just be timber and plaster, but I was having a good time laying bricks, so I kept going, making more and adding them to the walls. If you want to get your hands on these new MÖRK BORG minis, you need to head over to the Kickstarter right now. As of posting this video, the campaign only has a few days left. There's a bunch of amazing new sculpts by Boris, who is one of the greatest physical sculptors of all time. They're perfectly suited to fit into a brutal and sinister world like the one of MÖRK BORG. They're hand cast in resin, and I can tell you from plenty of experience that these casts are phenomenal. They're as good as it gets, and always a blast to paint. By backing the Kickstarter, you can help to unlock even more incredible sculpts and ensure they get made. What else can I say about these minis? Just look at them. They are awesome. And you can back campaigns by Westfalia with absolute confidence, as they have a great reputation and history of successfully fulfilling many miniature Kickstarters over the years. Yeah, just go get them right now before it's too late. Go! I really love the way ruined walls look with bricks layered on each side of the foam core. This is again something I like better than just on a carved piece of foam, because it's so much easier to have the bricks look different on each side, giving them a much more realistic look to how the bricks have fallen off over time. I did want some plaster areas of the building, just so that thematically and visually they fit in the same setting as the other ruined Tudor homes that I've been building recently. So I used my acrylic caulking mixed with black paint technique to cover the flat areas of foam core and give them some texture. It's kind of tricky to get a decent texture with a brush, so I find that it helps to dab it with a damp paper towel. This flattens all those high peaks made by the brush and the sticky material. Before doing the grout work, I took a second to go over all of the edges of the walls to break off chunks of foam. This is really important in making the walls look like they're actually damaged, versus just looking like they were built to these weird random heights and shapes that they are. The reason lately I've been coating my foam bricks with this caulking mixture isn't to protect the foam. I mean, it does do that, but the main reason is to fill the cracks. I actually like the way brickwork looks when those gaps aren't filled. It makes the pattern stand out more. But the problem is that it's very difficult to get paint into every crack. I seem to always end up with some spots of raw foam showing up in the finished piece if you look at it from a certain angle. So filling these gaps avoids this problem, while also creating a big protective shell layer that holds everything securely together. And with all the gaps filled with a material that's already very dark gray, I can be less careful when painting. If I miss something, it's not going to matter. It's always an extremely satisfying moment to see a build get cohesive color. It's at this point that all that hard work starts to pay off, and you start to see a real structure rather than just something made out of random pieces of colorful foam. This is the moment I build for. It's just so cool to see something come to life, even with a very basic paint job. I did want to give this set a bit more of a dusty look, and I wanted to introduce some subtle color variants, so I used pan pastels to weather everything. I also tried using it to slightly color the wood beams, and I like this result more than how I've previously done it with airbrushed inks or by brushing on an oil wash. The pastels give it just a hint of umber color that make it read as wood, but keeps things desaturated enough to look appropriate on an old ruined structure. It also doesn't matter if the color gets onto the other areas, as it just ends up looking like dust and dirt. I was gonna call this thing done, but I remembered that I had some pre-painted candles left over from the Idols of Torment set that I just built, so I figured why not use them on this? Just some small splashes of color to contrast the very monotone stone structure and to give things a bit more of a grimdark vibe. I think this build is super damn cool. I love it. It's perfect for an encounter setting for a dark RPG like MÖRK BORG, but could also easily drop into the City of the Damned on a Mordheim table. Hell, with the candles, I can even use it for idols. It's generic enough to be multi-use, but interesting enough to look cool while using it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. That really helps the channel out quite a bit on YouTube. If you want to pick up some of my merch or original builds, or do some shopping for your hobby supplies, you can do so at blackmagicraft.ca. It's a great way to support the channel. Another amazing way to support the channel and help me keep making these videos is by joining the Black Magic Craft Patreon. That support goes a long way, so if you like what I do and you want to help me do it, yeah, that's a good way to do it. So that's it for this one. I will see you again in the next video. Cheers.